Hi, I'm Linda Keys. I'm a senior graphic designer, and I am a member of the MTA Inclusion Council. As we celebrate Black History Month, we asked our fellow employees to share their thoughts and the significance of Black History Month and tell us what inspired them. Here are their comments.
Black History Month is a time in which we reflect on the important contributions that African Americans have made. It also reminds me of courage, faith, and perseverance can move mountains.
It reminds me of all of the African Americans that have made contributions and sacrifices for African Americans and for America.
Well, Black History Month is significant and important because it tells our story as to who we are. And you can get the story from our voices as opposed to other people's voices who really don't know the story.
As a Latino from the Caribbean, I acknowledge the blood I have in me from the motherland of Africa, and of course the contributions of African Americans in American history have certainly helped Latinos and Asians and gays and lesbians and everyone. So I acknowledge Black History Month as a very significant time to reflect on the accomplishments of African Americans in our history.
I've done historical research, and the African American contribution isn't really acknowledged for the most part. And so I feel that as an African American, this month actually gives you time to reflect on all of the things that our ancestors before us actually went through even for me to be in the position that I'm in today. There were a lot of struggles, there were a lot of things that we had to overcome, and I feel that every race should have an opportunity to actually acknowledge that.
Well, it shows the progress that we've made. I look at things a little bit differently growing up with a single mom, and you can see that how we went from sitting on the back of the bus to driving the buses now, from cleaning up the office of Fortune 5 companies to owning Fortune 500 companies, from cleaning the houses of white people to putting the black man in the White House. So it just shows the progress we made and the things that we can do if we just work hard and try our best and do everything that we need to do to get there, that we hold the key to our success in our own hands.
My inspiration, I have a lot of inspiration from many people, but to pick one, I would say Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson, who broke the baseball color line back in 1947, had to endure a lot of stuff, a lot of bad stuff, racial taunts. He was ostracized in the clubhouse, and he was the test case to see whether or not the races could be combined in the major leagues. He was told to be quiet and to absorb all of this, and so his struggle produced perseverance, and his perseverance produced character, and his character produced hope for many African American and Latino ball players and Asian ball players who have followed after him.
I would have to say, growing up in the era that I grew up in, it has to be Dr. Martin Luther King, because he showed us that you can get things done in a non-violent way. His words and the way he carried himself was a true leader who led from example, who his action in the civil rights movement showed that a courage that I can only imagine or want to have one day.
That person would be my mother's eldest sister, my aunt. She's deceased now. Her name was Eleonora, and she was the oldest of 6 children. They were born and raised in the South. The reason that she inspired me is because she came from humble beginnings. She had nothing. They picked cotton, and she decided at 16 to come to New York City and actually work in the factories and make money to take it back home to build the business. And essentially that's what she did. She went back to South Carolina, she built the business, she employed relatives, she employed neighbors and friends, Whenever anyone was hungry and needed anything, she was always there for them. And she did all of this with only a 7th grade education. And the generation that came after her, her daughter, myself, she essentially helped send us all to college and say, you need an education, this is what I want for you. Even though I don't have it, even though she didn't have a high school education. She allowed me to dream. She told me that anything that you set your mind to, you can do, and I believed her.
I've been on the railroad 30 years now, and I met some terrific African-American gentlemen who worked here and who never really got any recognition whatsoever for working here. But they were stable, they were solid, they were classy individuals. Eddie Gunther was one, Nick Darby was another, Charlie Chirac was a third. You know, just terrific, wonderful people. Oh, and as along with George Tarrant, who worked here, who dedicated their lives here, and who helped pave the way for people like me to be here.
Bill Cosby inspires me. He's a very affluent person, African American. He broke barriers in television back in the 60s with I Spy, as well as his show, The Cosby Shows, in the 80s. One of the great things that was significant to me was when he started his Fat Albert and the Kids show through PBS, which kind of like gave all children a way of dealing with things in everyday life. Bill has also been a very outspoken critic, I would say, sometimes of our community. He has always supported our community. Back in 1988, he had made one of the largest donations to Spelman College of $20 million. He backs up what he says with his contributions. Even though sometimes he's critical, he backs up what he says and he means what he says.
I'm inspired by my parents because through poverty, racism, and other struggles, they did not allow any of those things to stand in their way, and they stayed strong. And as a result of that, I learned the same beliefs, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here today working at Metro North Railroad.